Hi, everybody. Hello, hello. I am Teresa. Welcome to my live. This is part two of the Will Smith book that I am reading together with you all. And anybody watching the playback, I hope you enjoy reading it because not everybody's going to buy the book. So I figured I'd read as much as I can for as long as I can. Although it's a pretty big book, I don't know if we'll get through the whole book, but I wanted to read it with my followers. I hope you enjoy. I hope you decide to subscribe and leave me some comments on your feedback about this book. It's so interesting. It's about Will talking about his life, as you can see right here. He's putting it all out on the table. And because I'm such a fan of Will Smith, I had to get the book. I had to jump on here and just every week, at least once a week, try to come on and read some parts of the book. So I'm super excited about it. If you're a Will Smith fan, you're going to want to come on in here as well. I did it part one last week. This is part two. And then every time I do a new part, you'll see it. It says it right here. And then every little bit that we read, we'll just carry on. This is a live stream, so I want to welcome everybody. Hi, Buddha. Hi, Buddha. So just a little recap on part one. When I first started the book, so I got up to a chapter and a half. And what Will was talking about is when him and his brother, just a little recap. Him and his brother were like 12, 13 years old, and the dad is very strict military man. The dad came home one day and there was a big hole in the wall. And he told them that they got to rebuild the whole entire wall. So they had to lay mortar and then brick, mortar and then brick, mortar and then brick. They had to work on this hole in the wall at 12 years old for a year and a half. So that's just a little recap of what I read last week. Now, imagine being 12 and 13 years old and you're building a wall in your backyard. Literally, you're not going outside to play. You're not doing what the other kids are doing. You're taking the mortar, putting it down. You're slapping the brick on. And then the next one, it took them over a year and a half. They were so mad. They were complaining. The dad started yelling, shut up, complaining, shut up, and just build this wall. Finally, after a year and a half of building it by hand, the dad said to them, because they waited for him to finally say something after they did all this hard work, blood, sweat, and tears, literally, he said to them, now, I never want to hear you complain about you can't do something in life ever again. So he had them build this wall to prove a point, to teach them a lesson. In life, you better not ever give up on anything that you got in your mind that you want to do. You can build this wall and it took you a year at 12 years old. You can do anything you want. So they were young. They didn't really get it. They were mad, but they understood at the end of the day because they had a lot of pride. So, but when you're kids, you hate your dad. I hate my dad. I hate my dad. So that's a recap of last week, part one. This is part two. So stick around, share me out. Please share me out. Give it a thumbs up and leave me some comments. Let me know if y'all are into it. If you're not, I understand that as well. But last week I had about 5 or 6 people and we talked about it the whole time. I was extremely excited that somebody was here besides me who's into the book. Let me just say hi to who's in the chat. Hey, Vern, what's up? How you doing? What's up, girl? Hey, Music Corner, thank you for coming in. Yes, the book is trending. Absolutely. Hi, Tanisha. Ad Still Sissy Host. Thank you so much, Music. Thank you for watching the ads. I really appreciate it. Hi, Journey with Kiki. Thank you for coming in. Shalisa, what's up, sis? Thank y'all for coming in so much. I just did a little recap of part one, which was really last week was my first time doing it. So I just talked about his dad making them build a wall from scratch at 12 years old. So, of course, at that time, Will and his brother was like, I hate you, in their mind. They were very scared of their father, so they never talked back to him. But they hated building that wall. There was no fun in it for them. So now I'm on part two, which just means we're going to continue. Will we ever get through this book? Probably not. But I am here for a while. As long as people are interested, I'm going to be here reading it. Because it can't be just me who's a Will Smith fan. And I hear he put a lot of stuff in this book. So I am super excited. I hope you all had a great Thanksgiving and a really good Black Friday. Did you pick up some good stuff? Let me know. Let me know. Oh, I'm on my cell and can't tag in the meeting. Okay, thank you, Buddha. Buddha Raid. Thank you, music. I hope you guys go ahead and subscribe to me. Come on and join the conversation. I am definitely reading inserts from Will Smith's new book. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Come on in. Subscribe, thumbs me up, share me out, whatever y'all can do. I was the clips Will Smith doing on. Oh yes, me too, Tanisha, me too. Hi, Planeta channel. How are you? Welcome in. Hi, Jaden. Hi, Jaden. That's how I've been keeping up as well. I've been watching the clips on Instagram. I've been, but I want to read it for myself. And like I said, I'll read it live on here as long as there's anybody who comes in and wants to hear it. But when y'all get tired of it, they'll let me know and I'll just continue reading it on my own because it is a thick book. But we are on basically chapter 2 because last week I read a whole chapter and a half, and I'm going to just pick up from there because I already did the recap for last week. I'm so excited about this book in Will's life. I can't wait to get into the guts of the book, I can't get into my other account. Oh, okay, Jaden. I don't know what happened. Thank you, Shalisa. Thank you. Shalisa, was you here last week with me when I first did it, part 1? I think there was a few of y'all here. All my international friends were here. Vern, what's been up, girl? What you been up to? Yes. So you definitely, and the people watching the playback, please leave me comments as well. All right, so I already did the recap. I'm going to go ahead and pick up where we left off last week, okay? And you guys, please, when I'm reading it, leave comments. I'm going to look at the chat and read. When y'all put a comment in there, I'm going to, go back and forth. So leave comments, absolutely. Oh, okay, you're working. Yeah, me too, Vern. I hear you. Oh, thank you, Shalisa. Thank you so much. I can't remember who was there. I just know I had a lot of my international friends here last week, but I know a few people hit me up and let me know that they watched the replay. So I appreciate that for sure. For sure. All right. So as I read, put your comments in there. I'm going to read that too. Let's discuss what I'm reading, okay? So we already covered that they built the wall by hand at 12, 13 years old and they hated it. The point of it was never complain about anything in life. If you can build this wall for a year and a half, you can do anything. That's the value that the dad instilled in Will and his brother. So we're going to pick up from that. All right. So now he's saying, Daddy-O they called their father Daddy-O. They never called him Dad, Daddy, Papa, nothing. It's always been Daddy-O, just an FYI. So Daddy-O was brilliant. Like many sons, I worshiped my father, but he also terrified me. He was one of the greatest blessings of my life and also one of the greatest sources of my pain. How deep is that? Greatest blessing and the greatest source of his pain because he was so scared of his father. Do y'all find that to be a deep comment? What do you think about that comment? I thought that was really kind of deep, and that could just be me, My mom was born Caroline Elaine Bright. She's a Pittsburgh girl, born and raised in Homewood, a predominantly Black neighborhood on the east side of the city in Pittsburgh. My mother, aka Mom, is eloquent and sophisticated. She has a petite frame with long, elegant piano player's fingers. That's what I got, piano fingers. Perfectly sized to deliver a gorgeous rendition of Fur Elise. She had been a standout student at Westinghouse High School and is one of the first Black women to ever study at Carnegie Mellon University. Okay? My mom would often say that knowledge was the only thing that the world couldn't take away from you. She told them knowledge couldn't be taken away from you. And she only cared about three things: education, education, education. She loved business, banking, finance, sales, contract. My mom always had her own money. Life moved quickly for my mother, as it often did in those days. She married her first husband at the age of 20, had a daughter, and was divorced less than 3 years later. By 25, as a struggling single mom, she was probably one of the most educated African American women in all of Pittsburgh. Yet, she was still working jobs beneath the level of her true potential. Feeling trapped and craving bigger opportunities, she packed up the baby and moved to live with her mother, my grandmother Gigi, in Philadelphia. So that's how his mom got to Philadelphia. My parents met in the summer of 64. My mom was working as a notary in the Fidelity Bank in Philly. She was rolling out with some girlfriends to a party, and one of them told her she just had to meet this man. His name was Will Smith. In many ways, my mom is the total opposite of my father, whereas Daddy-O was the boisterous, charismatic center of attention. My mom is quiet and reserved, not because she's shy or intimidated, but because she only speaks when it improves on silence. She loves words and always chooses them carefully. She speaks with an academic sophistication. Daddy-O, on the other hand, was loud, spewing the lingo of the 50s North Philly hood rat. He loved the poetry of his profanity. I once heard him call a man a dirty rat, cocksucking, low-down, mangy pig fucker. Okay? Not a pig fucker. Okay? My mom doesn't use profanity. It's important to note here that back in the day, Daddy-O was the man, 6'2", smart, good-looking, the proud owner of a fire engine red convertible Pontiac. Hey, Akil. Hey, D. Marie. What's up? Beginning, I already did a recap of part one last week, and now we are moving on in the book. I already recapped that about him and his brother building that wall brick by brick, mortar by mortar for a year and a half, just to at the end of them building it for the father to say, I don't never want to hear y'all complain about anything again. If you can build this wall, you can do anything in life. That was part one. Now I'm in part two. You came in during a colorful part. Yes, ma'am. Okay, so he was funny. He could sing. Will's talking about his dad. He was just talking about his mom. Now he's talking about his dad. He was funny. He could sing. He could play the guitar. He could lock people into him. He was always the dude standing in the middle of a party with the drink in one hand and a cigarette in the other back in the 50s. A master storyteller who could keep a room buzzing. That's where Will get that from. I'm reading a science book right now, but I want to show some love. Thank you, Akil. Thank you. When my mom first saw Daddy-O, he reminded her of a tall Marvin Gaye. He was savvy and he knew his way around people. He could talk his way into a party, get free drinks and a table near the front. Daddy-O had a way of moving through the world like everything was under control. It was all going to be fine. This was comforting for my mother. My mother's memory of their first days together is just a blurred montage of restaurants, clubs, strung together by a stream of jokes and laughter. My mom couldn't get over how funny he was. But most important to her, he was ambitious. He had his own business. He had employees. He wanted to work in white neighborhoods with white people working for him. I'll drink to that. So it sounds like Will get all his charisma from his daddy. Daddy-O was going places. My father wasn't used to interacting with women of my mother's educational accomplishments. Because don't forget, he said his dad was like a hood rat. Man, this bird smart as a mother father. He thought. Daddy-O was the street smarts to my mom's book smarts. My parents had a lot in common too. They both had a passion for music. They loved jazz, blues, and later funk and R&B. They lived through the glorious Motown days and spent much of it dancing together in a musty basement, parties, and jazz clubs. Thank you for 9 people being in here. Please thumbs me up, share me out if you can. And if you're not subscribed, I would love if you would subscribe. Thank you so much. And thank you for just sitting up there watching. I am perfectly fine with that. I just wanted to let y'all know I appreciate you. Both, but there were strange combinations as well. The stuff that startles you and makes you think this must be God's plan. Both of my parents had mothers who were nurses who worked night shifts. One was Helen and one name was Ellen. Both of my parents had short-lived marriages in their early 20s. They both had daughters. And in perhaps the strangest coincidence, they had both named their daughters Pam. So they had a lot in common before they really even knew each other. My parents got married in a small ceremony at Niagara Falls in 1966. Soon after, Daddy-O moved into my grandmother Gigi's house on North 54th Street in West Philly. It wasn't long before they combined their very different strengths and talents into an effective team. My mom ran Daddy-O's office, payroll, contracts, taxes, accounting, permits. And Daddy-O got to do what he did best, work hard and make money. Both my parents would later speak fondly of those early years. They were young, in love, ambitious, and they were moving on up. So that means they started to connect. My full name, this is Will Smith talking. My full name is Willard Carroll Smith, not Junior. He is not a junior. Daddy-O would always correct people. Hey, he ain't no mother effing Junior. He felt like calling me Junior diminished both of us. Okay. I was born on September 25th, 1968. My mom says that from that moment I showed up, I was a talker, always smiling, yapping, and babbling away, content to just making noise. Gigi worked the graveyard shift at Jefferson Hospital in Center City, Philadelphia. So she'd take care of me in the mornings while my parents were at work. Her house had a huge porch which served as my front row seat to the drama of North 54th Street and a stage on which I can join in the theatrics. She'd prop me up on that porch and watch me jibber jabber with anybody and everybody who walked by. Even at that age, I loved having an audience. My twin brother and sister, Harry and Ellen, were born on May 5th, 1971. And counting my mom's daughter, Pam, just like that, there would now be 6 of us under one roof. Did y'all know that Will was a twin? I don't think I've ever heard that. To be completely honest, I don't think I've ever heard him say he's a twin. You guys let me know if you ever heard Will say he has a twin. Or is it just me? He doesn't talk about his siblings. You don't see him. I never knew. Fortunately, the North Philly entrepreneur and Daddy-O was alive and well. He had gone from repairing refrigerators to installing and maintaining refrigerator and freezer cases in major supermarkets. Business was taking off. He was expanding beyond Philly into the surrounding suburbs. He started to build a fleet of trucks and hire a crew of refrigeration and electrical technicians. He also rented a small building to use as his base of operations. Hey, Music Corner saying BG. Daddy-O was always hustling. I remember one particularly frigid winter. Cash got tight, so he taught himself how to repair kerosene heaters. They were all the rage in Philly at the time. He put up a bunch of flyers and people started bringing him their broken heaters. Daddy-O figured out that once he fixed the heater, he'd have to test it for a couple of days to make sure it was working. At any given time, he'd have 10 or 12 kerosene heaters being tested for the quality of his work. That many heaters would easily warm a West Philly home, even in the coldest winter. So Daddy-O canceled our gas service, kept his family warm and toasty for the winter, and got paid for it. By the time that I was 2 years old, Daddy-O had established his business firmly enough to buy a house about a mile from Gigi in a middle-class neighborhood of West Philly called Winfield. I grew up at 5943 Woodcrest Avenue on a tree-lined street of 30 grayish red brick raw homes, all connected. Hey, Charlene, how are you, sis? I'm on part 2 of Will Smith's book. I'm reading from where I left off last week. I was trying to ask the people in here if anybody knew that Will Smith was a twin. I did not know that. And I believe that's what it said, his twin brother and sister. Or maybe the brother and sister are twins, not him. I think that's what it is. Will's not the twins. He has a brother and sister that are fraternal twins. That's what I think it is. Thank you. Thank you. I hope you had a great Thanksgiving and Black Friday and found everything that you're looking for. So, connected. The physical proximity of the houses cultivated a strong sense of community. It also meant that if your neighbor had roaches, you had roaches too. That's how close the houses were. Everybody knew everybody. For a young Black family in the 70s, this was an American dream as you could get. Across the street was Bieber Middle School and its majestic concrete playground. Basketball, baseball, girls jumping double dutch, the old head slap boxing, and the second summer hit, pop goes the water plug. You know everybody's to turn on that water that spews out into the street. Our neighborhood was thick with kids, and we were always outside playing. Living within 100 yards of my house, there were also 40 kids my age. Stacy, David, Reese, Sherry, Michael, Teddy, Sean, and Omar, and on and on. And that's not even counting their siblings or the kids on the next block. So Will had a lot of kids in his neighborhood growing up. Stacy Brooks is one of my oldest friends in the world. We met the day my family moved to Woodcrest. I was 2, she was 3. Our mothers pushed our strollers up to each other and introduced us. I was in love with her by the time I turned 7. But she was in love with David Brandon, who was 9. What do you know about love at 7 years old? Times were good and people were clearly having sex, and a lot of it. My middle-class upbringing contributed to the constant criticism I took early in my rap career. I was not a gangster and I wasn't selling drugs. I grew up on a nice street in a 2-parent household. I went to a Catholic school with mostly white kids until I was 14. My mom was college educated, and for all of his faults, my father also put food on the table and would die before he abandoned his kids. My story was very different from the ones being told by the young Black men who were launching the global phenomenon that would later become hip hop. In their minds, I was somehow an illegitimate artist. They would call me soft, whack, corny, a bubblegum rapper. I remember that. I remember Will growing up, and people used to say that when he first started his rap career. Criticisms that violently infuriated me. Looking back, I realized I may have been projecting a little, but the reason I hated it so much was that they were unknowingly poking at the thing I most hated about myself, my sense that I was a coward. He always said that he felt like he was a coward internally. He covered that a little bit when we read part 1. And I thought, wow, that's crazy, you know? Oh, yeah. Yeah, you remember that, Charlene? Daddy-O saw the world in terms of commanders and missions, a military mindset and that informed every aspect of his life. He would come to run our family as though we were in a platoon on a battlefield, and the Woodcrest house was our barracks. His dad was very, very strict. He didn't ask us to clean our rooms or to make our bed. He commanded it. Police your area, he said. In his world, there was no such thing as a small thing. Doing your homework was a mission. Cleaning the bathroom was a mission. Getting groceries from the supermarket, a mission. And scrubbing a floor, it was never just scrubbing a floor. It was about your ability to follow orders, to exhibit self-discipline, and to complete a task with the utmost perfection. 99% is the same as 0. was one of his favorite sayings. 99% is the same as zero. Come on, so he only want 100% or better. Thank you, Music Corner. Good night. Have a good night. Get some rest. Thank you for coming in for a little while. I appreciate it. If a soldier failed his or her mission, it had to be repeated until perfected. And to disobey a command meant you faced a court martial, and the punishment usually came in the form of a belt to your bare ass. He'd say, take them off. I ain't gonna beat my clothes. He ain't gonna beat the clothes that he bought. So he always told him, take your pants down so I can whoop your behind with this belt. In Daddy-O's mind, everything was life or death. He was preparing his children to thrive in a harsh world, a world that he saw as chaotic and brutal. The instilling of fear was and still is, to a large degree, a cultural parenting tactic in the Black community. Fear is embraced as a survival necessity. It is a widely held belief that in order to protect Black children, they must fear parental authority. The instilling of fear is viewed as an offering of love. That is very true, because back in that day, everybody on my neighborhood, our parents would beat our behind. We knew they loved us, but you're not going to disobey. It's different now, but it was not different back then. On May 13th of 85, Daddy-O came into our rooms calling for us to get on the floor. A couple of miles south of Woodcrest, the Philadelphia Police Department had just dropped a pair of 1-pound bombs on a residential neighborhood. We could hear the faint cock, 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 cock of automatic gunfire. 5 children and 6 adults would die that day in what is now known as the MOVE bombing. 2 entire city blocks, 65 homes were burned to the ground. That's why he made them get down on the floor, because the police were bombing the neighborhood. The news always seemed to reinforce Daddy-O's point of view. Daddy-O ideology was centered on training us mentally and physically to handle life's inevitable adversities. I know, Charlene, I know. Can you imagine? Like, I've been in neighborhoods where they're shooting and stuff here and there, but not just dropping bombs and cut, 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 cut. That's crazy. I remember one Sunday afternoon, Daddy-O was taking a rare day off and sitting in the living room watching TV. He called me over. Hey, Will, come over here. Popping straight to attention, I said, yes, Daddy. Don't forget, Will is petrified of his father. Run up to Mr. Bryant's and grab my Territon 100s. Yes, sir. He handed me $5 and I was off to the corner store. I was maybe 10 years old at the time. But this was in the 70s, back when parents could send their kid to buy cigarettes. I ran down the street directly to Mr. Bryant's without stopping, totally out of breath, a perfect soldier. This sounds like a movie, my goodness, the trauma. And Charlene, the stuff that Will has went through, he has it all in this book, and we are just beginning, girl. That's why I wanted to read it. I figured even if nobody came in, somebody watching the playback, we're going to read this book together. So I appreciate all 9 of you guys coming in and listening in the background. Hi, Mr. Bryant. My dad sent me to pick up his cigarettes. How you doing, Will? Mr. Bryant said at the store. They didn't come in today. Tell Daddy-O they should be here tomorrow. I'll hold a carton for him. Okay, thank you, Mr. Bryant. I'll tell him. Still a good soldier, I headed home. On my way back, I ran into David and Danny Brandon, who had just gotten this weird new thing called a Nerf football. It was a football, but it was soft. I don't know what happened to my thing all of a sudden. Okay. Any soldier would have stopped. This thing was amazing. I got lost in the whole extraordinary object. Nerf footballs were just coming out at that time. You could throw it in the winter, but it wouldn't hurt your fingers if you caught it. You could miss it. It could hit you in the face and you'd be fine. 1 minute turned into 5. 5 minutes became 10. 10 became 20. Suddenly, David and Danny freeze. Their eyes lock over my shoulder. I turn and my stomach drops. Daddy-O, bare-chested, striding up the middle of the street right at me. And don't forget, he's scared of his father. He treats them like they're in the military. What the hell are you doing? His daddy yells. David and Danny evaporated. I quickly tried to explain. Daddy, Mr. Bryan said the cigarettes didn't come in. And what did I tell you to do? I know, Daddy, but who's in charge? What do you mean? Who's in charge? You or me? My heart pounding out of my chest, my voice quivers. You are, Daddy, you are. Because if two people are in charge, everybody dies. So if you're in charge, let me know, because I will defer to your leadership. This is what he was saying. Bare-chested, honey, probably had on flip-flops. Akil, he probably had on flip-flops, honey. His nostrils were flaring, the veins in his left temple pulsing madly, his eyes burning through my fragile 10-year-old innocence. When I send you on a mission, there are two possibilities. One, you complete the mission. Two, you are dead. Do you understand me? Yes, Daddy. Daddy will grab me by the back of the neck and drag me home. I didn't think I deserved a whooping for that. Most of the times I got hit during my childhood, I didn't think I earned it. It felt like an injustice. I wasn't the kind of kid you needed to spank. I already wanted to please you. David Brandon needed a beating. Matt Brown needed a beating. If I got in trouble, it was usually because I was distracted. I wouldn't forget something or my mind would drift. I think the corporal punishment of my childhood just convinced me I was bad. The constant fear during my childhood honed my sensitivity to every detail in my environment. From a very young age, I developed a razor-sharp intuition, an ability to attune to every emotion around me. I learned to sense anger, predict joy, and understand sadness on far deeper levels than most other kids. Recognizing these emotions was crucial and critical for my personal safety. A tone in Daddy-O's voice, a pointed question from my mother, a twitch of my sister's eye. I processed these things quickly and profoundly. Yes, Charlene, it's crazy how mad he was. I missed a glance or misinterpreted word could quickly deteriorate into a belt or my ass or a fist in my mother's face. A fist in my mother's face, y'all. So now we're getting into the good stuff. Daddy-O had a black leather key pouch hooked on his utility belt that held about 30 keys, which for me served as an alarm system. The second he walked through the door, you could hear his keys jingling as he placed them back in their case and reset them at his hip. Yes, I became so in tune that I could discern his mood from the rhythm and the intensity with which he handled his keys. This is why Will wrote the book. He said he was tired of carrying all this stuff from his childhood and his life. And he felt like once he got it all out, it was a relief for him. My bedroom was at the top of the stairs, directly facing down to the front door. If he was in a good mood, they would jingle effortlessly, as though they were lighter than usual. If he was pissed, I could hear the jolt of pressure as he retreated, as he retracted them to his hip. And if he was drunk, the keys didn't matter. The emotional awareness has stayed with me throughout my life. Paradoxically, it has served me as well as an actor and a performer. I could easily recognize, comprehend, and emulate complex emotions long before I knew that people would pay me for it. It's crazy, y'all. My father was born on the heels of the Great Depression. He was a poor Black kid living on the streets of North Philly in the 1940s. He basically had a 10th grade education, yet over the course of his life, he built a business with a dozen employees and 7 trucks selling 30,000 pounds of ice per day to the grocery stores and supermarkets, thousands of pounds of ice per day to the grocery stores, supermarkets in 3 states. He went weeks without taking a day off, decades without taking a vacation. My mother has memories of Daddy-O coming home in the middle of the night from the shop, dumping thousands of dollars in cash onto the bed, saying, "Count that," and then immediately heading out into the night to get back to work. Hi, ZR family. How are you? Thank you. Thank you. Yes, ZR. I'm on part 2. I started last week with the Will Smith book. I'm reading it live with everybody here. So please jump in, leave comments, everything, anything as we go along. Hi, Trendorama. How are you? Thank you so much for coming in. I'm reading the Will Smith book. So please leave comments as I'm reading. Share me out or thumbs me up, whatever you want to do. Thank you, thank you. And if anybody's not subscribed, please do so. My father tormented me, and he was also one of the greatest men I have ever known. My father was violent, but he was also at every game, play, and recital. So it's very confusing. He was an alcoholic, but he was sober at every premiere of every one of my movies. He listened to every record. He visited every studio. The same intense perfectionism that terrorized his family, but put food on the table every night of my life. So many of my friends grew up either not knowing their fathers or not having their fathers around. But Daddy-O had my back and never abandoned his post, not even once. And while he never learned to overcome his demons, he would cultivate in me the tools to confront my own. Akil says strangely, all the greats had terrible childhoods. I know, Akil. So are we as good parents raising a generation of mediocrity? I absolutely think that we kind of, especially this newer generation, I think that we kind of spoon feed our kids, give them everything we didn't have, creating dependent adults. You know what I mean? So those bad, mean, strict dads like back then, you learn very quick how to be independent. Nowadays, kids don't have to do that. Hell, they be in their late 20s and 30s, and their parents are still paying for the cell phone, their car notes, washing their clothes. We are enabling our kids to become non-productive adults that live at home till they're 50. You know what I mean? So it's a fine line, Akil. Don't think so, King. We just need to find a balance. The trauma needs to stop. Yes, we don't want to traumatize our kids. Absolutely not. But we need to groom them for the real world and not always give them everything that we never got. You know? Great analysis, but some way we have to stop the trauma. Absolutely. This is really a great read. I'm really tuned in. Thank you so much, Shalise. I really felt the same way. That's why I decided every week I'm going to come on here and read it for whoever wants to read along with me. You know what I mean? Whether it be me by myself and people watching the playback or you guys who come in. I really appreciate you guys. It's a good book and it's a great conversation to have, you know? So anytime you have commentary, throw it in the chat. Let's talk about it, okay? As much as we all suffered under Daddy-O's militaristic views of love and family, nobody suffered more than my mother. If two people being in charge meant everybody dies, which is what the father told him, then that meant my mother could never be in charge. How deep is that, y'all? So I shouldn't start choking my kids because sometimes they need a good choking. No, Akil, what you can do is say, go in your room and read the first 5 pages of this book, of this social studies book, and don't come out again until you're done. Instill education for punishment, okay? That comes from JustTheresa. Then that meant my mother would never be in charge if they go with his father's analogy. The problem was that my mother wasn't the type of woman to be commanded. She was educated, proud, and stubborn. And as much as we begged her to please be quiet, she refused. So this is about to be good. Don't choke them, right? Yes, Akil, that's what you have to do. I used to tell my kids to do that. Go in a room and read a book. Read your social studies. Read your science. But I'm going to need you to read 5 pages, and then we're going to come back and talk about it. Every time you act up, we're going to do more pages. I'm going to keep adding on the pages. You know? So there's ways to be creative. Okay, so they begged their mom to be quiet because she's a strong man and he believes only one person can be in charge, but she's a person with intelligence. She wasn't going to be dumbed down for nobody. Once when Daddy-O slapped her, she egged him on. Oh, you're such a man. You think that hitting a woman makes you a man, huh? Thank you. Thank you, ZR family. Definitely, definitely. When they get on here, listen, one thing kids don't want to do is read school books when they're not in school, especially on the days they don't have homework or no homework. They need to read books when they act up. Books that's going to educate the mind. So Black history books if you want, or their school books so they can be ahead on their classes. They'll stop acting up. Trust me. When you start threatening them with, okay, I'm going to get that social studies book. Keep talking. I'm going to get that social studies book. They're going to shut up. Oh, you're such a man, the mom says after he slapped her because she cannot be shut up. He hit her again, knocking her to the ground. She stood right back up, looked him in the eye, and calmly said, hit me all you want, but you can never hurt me. So she was antagonizing an abuser. I have never forgotten that, Will says. The idea that he could hit her body, but somehow she was in control of what hurt her. I wanted to be strong like that. So Will looked at that and said, oh my God, he's hitting her in her face and she's still standing up and owning it. That's an amazing way to put it in your head. Nobody can break you unless you let them. You know, everybody in the house could fight except me. Will kept saying he was a coward his whole life. He said everybody in his house can fight except for him. Yes, wow, that says a lot. Absolutely. And what a woman. My older sister Pam was strong like my mother. She was 6 years older than me, and she was kind of my childhood bodyguard. She would stand up to anybody at any time. There were multiple situations where somebody would take my money or I would get bullied or come home crying, and Pam would grab me by the hand, walk me straight outside and scream, who did it? Who did it? Point to him, Will. Then she'd proceed to casually whoop the whole ass of the unfortunate kid I pointed at. It was a sad day when she left for college because that was his bodyguard. Today is Friday. This is my margarita. Okay, so Harry turned out to be strong too. While I took extra special care to please my father every chance that I got, Harry mimicked my mother's behavior starting at a young age. He preferred to just stand up and take the beatings. He once yelled at my father, you can hit me, but you can't make me cry. Smack. The dad smacked him again. I'm not crying. Smack. I'm not crying. So he's doing what he's seen his mother do. This is his brother. So he eventually realizing he couldn't break him, Daddy-O laid off for Harry altogether. All along, Harry's courage, the fact that my little brother was able to stand up to the monster, just reinforced my shame of being a coward. In a family of fighters, I was the weak one. I was the coward. Oh, wait, we drinking? Let me get my tea. Go get that, Charlene. Leave it playing in the background. You know I gotta have something to sip on. It was a long week at work, y'all. Thank God for yesterday being off. Woo. I hope y'all are enjoying the book, even if you're coming in and out. Hopefully you'll watch the replay if you missed some of it, you know. Okay, so enacting understanding the character's fears is a critical part of understanding his or her psyche. The fears create desires, and the desires participate actions. This repetitive action and predictable responses are the building blocks of great cinematic characters. It's pretty much the same in real life. Something bad happens to us, And we decide we're never going to let that happen again. But in order to prevent it, we have to be a certain way. We choose the behaviors that we believe will deliver safety, stability, and love. I had to pause, so I'm behind about 10 minutes. Oh, okay, Charlene, Shalisa, but you know you can always jump in on a replay, bring it to where you left off, and kind of catch up because there was some juicy stuff there. And we repeat them over and over again. In the movies, we call it character. In real life, we call it personality. How we decide to respond to our fears, that is the person we become. I decided to be funny. His siblings and his mother decided to stand up to his dad, slapping him in the face. Will said he was always a coward. He was always scared. So his outlet wasn't to stand up to his father. It was just to be funny, which is what you see today. This great, beautiful personality of a man who laughs and jokes through his pain. Each of my siblings remembers that night in the bedroom with our mother. Each of us was incredibly scared, but each of us responded differently in ways that would go on to define who we were for much of our lives. Harry, despite being only 6 years old, tried to intervene and protect our mother. He would do so many times over the coming years, sometimes successfully. But that night, Daddy-O just shoved him away. My brother intuitively got my mother's lesson about pain. Harry had discovered that untouchable place within himself, that place where you could hit him as much as you wanted to, but you could never hurt him. He built up an internal wall. I remember him once yelling at my father, "You'll have to kill me to make me stop." So basically, you're going to have to kill me to make me stop protecting my mother. That is deep at that age. That same night, my sister Ellen responded by running to her bedroom, curling up on the bed, covering her ears and crying. Later, she would recall Daddy-O walking by her room and hear her sobbing, coldly asking, "Now what the F you crying about?" Ellen withdrew, not only from Daddy-O, but from the rest of the family. Years later, her withdrawal would result in outright rebellion. She'd stay out all night drinking and smoking and wouldn't even bother to call to say where she was. Yes, ZR. Yes, the whole thing has been deep. If Harry was fight, Ellen was flight. And I became a pleaser. Throughout our childhood, my siblings and I judged one another harshly for our different reactions. And those judgments hardened into resentment. Ellen felt like Harry and I didn't support her. Harry felt that as the older brother, I should have been stronger. But don't forget, Will always said he's the coward. He's scared of his father. Harry felt that as the older brother, I should have been stronger. I should have done something. And I felt like their responses only inflamed the situations and made it worse for everybody. I wanted everybody to just shut the F up and do it my way. Will felt like, let's just laugh through the pain. Antagonizing him and making him keep hitting you isn't going to work. I wanted to please and placate him because as long as Daddy-O was laughing and smiling, I believed we would be safe. I was the entertainer in the family and I wanted to keep everything light and fun, joyful. And why this psychological response would later bear artistic and financial fruits, it also meant that my little 9-year-old brain processed Daddy-O's episodes as somehow being my fault. He started processing it like it was his fault, that all of this was happening to his mother because of his dad, with his dad. At 9 years old, I should have been able to keep my father satisfied, is what I told myself. I should have been able to protect my mother. I should have been able to make the family stable and happy. I should have been able to make everything all right. That's where the comedian came from. Yes, ZR, absolutely. And it's in this compulsive desire to constantly please others, to keep them laughing and smiling at all times, to redirect all the attention in the room away from the ugly and the uncomfortable, toward the joyful and the beautiful. It's there that a true entertainer is born. But that night in that bedroom, with me standing there in the doorway, watching my father's fist collide with the woman I love most in the world, watching as she collapsed to the ground, helpless, I just stood there, frozen. Crazy how children interpret things. Wow, how we frame their subconscious. Everything we do, Charlene, has an impact on our kids. Arguing a lot with the father of the kids, not letting the kids see their dad because your relationship didn't work. All of that interprets to kids as it's their fault. They turn to drugs, they turn to the street, they turn angry, whatever it is. We have got to stop letting the kids see what they're seeing, hear what they're hearing. It's not good, it's not healthy. Go somewhere where your kids are not. Take the baby's mother or father outside. Go outside for a walk and then talk about it, but not in front of the kids. That's all we can do is change the narrative, you know? This is why I'm hard on Jada. This man has been through enough. This is why I'm hard on Jada. Yes, everybody been saying that, Akil, for sure. Hey, ZR Family Flex, I'm listening while washing dishes and fussing at my baby. I'm sorry. Right? I'm folding clothes as I listen, then we'll get my tea. Yes. We don't got much more to go. I usually do an hour. We got about 10 more minutes, and that actually will be right around the time that we hit chapter 2. So next week will be chapter 2. This is all still part of chapter 1 that I started last week. Jada is just doing the most. Like, girl, just divorce him and go sleep with young boys. Let's just do that already. Go live your best life, okay? Because Will, believe it or not, can get any woman he wants. Jada's crazy, you know? But that night in the bedroom with, I said that. I just stood there frozen. I had been scared my whole childhood. But this was the first time I had been aware of my own inaction. I was my mom's oldest son. I was less than 10 yards away. I was the only chance she had for help. It's on the loudspeaker, so you know I'm tuned in. Thank you, Shalisa. Thank you, sis. Yet I did nothing. So he's still standing in the doorway, watching his dad punch his mother in the face, making her fall on the ground. He's probably 9 years old, and he's still saying he did nothing. He's still taking that abuse as it's his fault, and he didn't protect her. Do you imagine living your life with that heaviness on your chest? We're lucky Will wasn't suicidal when he was growing up, because we would never have a Fresh Prince of Bel-Air or a Will Smith. The world needs his laughter. We need Will. I tagged Will on this YouTube. I tagged him on Instagram, and I hope one day he'll come into my readings. You have to manifest what you want sometime. Why not me? Who says because I'm the little YouTuber, he might not pop in? Who says? You gotta believe, honey. Okay, so that's so hard. I trust through this book, he was able to release his pain and heal. Yes, Charlene, that's exactly why he said he told all his personal business from childhood right up to the current day. So there's a lot to uncover. I mean, we got some good weeks ahead of us. This gives content as well, but I just think it's a good book. You know what I mean? So I'm glad that there's somebody who's with me on this journey. Right, Charlene, come on. It was then that my young identity congealed in my mind. It became encased in a hard sediment, an unshakable feeling that no matter what I have done and no matter how successful I have become, no matter how much money I've made or how many number one hits I've had or how many box office records I've broken, there is that subtle and silent feeling always pulsating in the back of my mind that I am a coward, that I have failed, that I am sorry. Mom, I am so sorry. And when he talks about that on Instagram, they show the clips from interviews, he starts bawling, saying, Mom, I'm sorry. He's been carrying that since he was 8 and 9 years old. And Will has got to be like 54, 53, 54 years old. That is a long time. We have to release our childhood traumas. Forgive ourselves and move on, and forgive the people who's done something to us and move on for us. Forgiveness ain't for them. Forgiveness is for you. Get the counseling, let it go so you can be a healthier, happier person. And I'm sure everybody got some level of trauma. Not everybody was molested or whatever, even though that is a big one, number one trauma. But some people got beat and it still affects them. Some people felt like their parents didn't love them, no matter what it is. Some people, a teacher told them, you ain't going to be nothing. And it affected their whole life. You get what I'm saying? We have to release that, y'all. So whatever childhood trauma you have, please release it, forgive yourself, forgive the person, and live your life. We should do a healing session on this. Yeah, absolutely, Charlene. Whenever, and whatever you want. So he says that I'm sorry. Mom, I'm so sorry. Do you know what happens when two people are in charge? When two people are in charge, everybody dies. He keeps replaying what his dad told him when he was 6. There can't be two people in charge, because when two people are in charge, one person has to die. So he also grew up with that. He grew up that there could only be one person in charge. If you're a married couple, how can you only have one person in charge? Can you imagine the trauma of that thought process? On top of, I didn't protect my mother. My grandmother sold ice to local markets and homes in the rich areas and coal in the winter. Oh, just like his dad did. His dad sold ice as well. That is so cool. Thank you for that information, Trendorama. That is very cool. Very cool to know a little bit about your parents. So cool. Sometimes you got to, back then, you got to do what you got to do to survive. That night, what I was going to say before I finish these last couple of paragraphs. What do y'all think about the dad's saying, two people can't be in charge, one person can be in charge, everybody else dies? What do y'all think? He wasn't saying literally they'll die, but what he meant by that is only one person can be in charge, so you got to sit down and shut up always. So basically that was for his mom. She's not going to ever run this. I'm going to run her. Thus the beatings, thus the smacking her in the face, thus the Will growing up feeling like there could only be one person in charge. I think that's so deep, so deep. Ego and upbringing. Yes, that saying is absolutely wrong. Come on, ZR family. That's why I wanted to talk about it. Who says that to their kids? Who says that? But a military man, because the sergeant was always the person in charge. Everybody else falls in line. Don't forget, it's a military dad. He's an alcoholic. He was always in the streets. He's a thug. He was a good father, but he was also a thug and a militant man. So I think the service has something to do with that saying. Like the sergeant, I'm just picturing the sergeant was up there saying, it can't be two of us in charge. One person in charge, that's me, and everybody else dies if you don't listen to me. Deep. In war, that makes sense. Exactly a kill. So that's where he gets that type of analogy, the dad does, because he was in the service. The service is what led him to the drugs and the alcohol and the meanness. So I wanted to put that in perspective. So when he said that to Will, he really meant that because he grew up with that type of mentality in the service. Craziness that Will had to grow up thinking that is just unfortunate, you know? That night in the bedroom at only 9 years old, watching the destruction of my family as my mother collapsed to the floor. In that moment, I decided, I made a silent promise to my mother, to my family, to myself. One day, I will be in charge. And this would never, ever happen again. Whoa. He said that day he made that decision that he would be in charge and this would never happen again, ever. Now, Will's a boss. Will employs hundreds of people. Will got everything Will wants. Will has his own studio. Will has his own movie stuff he got going on that he directs and he employs. Will has put himself in a position where he's in charge, except for maybe in his household. Because that old Jada, honey, you know. So in my home, we both have a say so. Absolutely, absolutely, ZR. Here now, because I've raised my kids are grown, it's just me and my husband. Do I let a man lead? Do I let a man be a man? I always have. We've been together 20 years. I never dumb down my husband and make him feel like he's not in charge per se. But I always had a say, and I was always in charge in my own right. By conversation, by talking to my husband, letting him see where my standpoint comes from. But I've never tried to talk down to him. I've never cursed at my husband ever in 20 years. I've never tried to demean him in any way, shape, or form. We have to work together. We make decisions together. But if he needs to make a decision as a man, then go ahead, by all means. I don't want to be the man. So I let a man be a man, especially a black man. At some level, they all want to be in charge. They don't want to feel like they're the girl in the relationship per se. You know what I mean? So we know our roles. We know our roles. I'm very, very, very much okay with my husband being in charge. I'll play second, but we always sit down and have a conversation together. You know what I mean? So you just got to know your position and kind of just go with what works in your house. You know what I'm saying? It's best when each partner plays to their strength. Exactly. And that's exactly what we do. There's some things he doesn't even care about. He's going to let me handle it. We got, between us, we got 5 adult kids and 3 grandkids. So there's some things my husband doesn't even get involved with. That's all me. There's other things where he steps up and says, wife, have a seat. Let me take care of this one. What do? I have a seat. Or go in another room. You have the conversation. I don't want to, you know what I'm saying? Just let me know later what happened. If you need me, I'm here. I'm always going to have your back. And you know what I'm saying? And vice versa. But everybody's marriage is different because I've been around people who talk to their husbands like they're their child. It's mind blowing to me because I've never done it, but I know that it happens in a lot of households. But whatever works in your household, you know what I mean? Whatever works. It don't work for me though. Perfectly said. Thanks, CR. Damn it, Charlene. I was just about to say that. Yes, it's best when each person plays their strength. Exactly. So that is the end of chapter 1. And see, the next chapter is fantasy. That is chapter 2. We are going to resume this. It has been exactly 1 hour. See, that's what I said. I do an hour. I think it's enough time. You guys don't want to stay in here forever. I hope that you guys like this. It seems like y'all were really engaged, and I love that. And I hope you show up each week, and let's continue reading this thing. The further we get, the deeper we're going to get, because not everybody's going to run out and buy the book. That's why I wanted to do this. And people in the playback might be sitting back just listening to me read it. I hope that y'all enjoyed my reading. I hope I didn't stumble too much. I'm a pretty good reader. All I used to do was read books. You know what I mean? So I'm so far behind from the actual live time. So I'm so lost when I do read the comments. Oh, Shalisa. Oh, that sucks. So today is Friday. And the only reason I didn't do it yesterday is because of Thanksgiving. So I'm going to set up another thumbnail. It's going to say part 3. And we're going to do that next Thursday around the same time. Okay? Next Thursday around the same time. So when I make the thumbnail, please put it in your remind me later so that it notifies you. I would love for y'all to come back. Pull up with your iced tea, your water, whatever it is. And let's get into some more of this book. Great minds think alike. Thank you, Charlene. I'm so glad you enjoyed it. I'm so glad. And I love having the commentary on it, you guys. I love having the discussion. Because some of this stuff that Will has been through, and he's been through so much more that we're going to get to, it is, we just got to have an open dialogue. Got to. So I love that y'all are in here and we can interact with it. Anybody watching the playback, please leave your comments. I will respond to it. I love any type of feedback on what you heard so far. I'm going to put all of the Will Smith into a playlist. It's going to be called Will Smith's Book. It's going to be a playlist titled Will Smith's Book. And I'm going to put part 1, part 2, part 3, whatever part I'm at in that playlist. So hopefully you guys will watch the playback of whatever one you didn't see. If you didn't see part 1, please watch the playback on part 1. I'm going to stick it in a playlist as soon as I hang up with this, actually. So thank you so much, Charlene, Akil, Shalisa, ZR family, Trendorama for coming through. I think earlier Vern stopped through. Thank you all so much. Akil, thank you so much. Who did I miss? Music Corner, thank you so much. I'm so glad that y'all enjoyed it. Dee Marie, she came in earlier. That's my daughter. Thank you so much, Dee Marie. I think she left early on. Tanisha, thank you for coming through earlier. Platia Channel, thank you. Buddha, thank you. Journey with Miss Kiki. Oh, we had a lot of people come through, you guys. And everybody that gave me a thumbs up and shared it out, please, if you didn't, please do. If you have 400 or 500 subscribers now, you can share. Tag me in it so I can thank you. And I hope I see y'all next week. Another great reading. Thank y'all so much. And I will see you on my next video. I'll be uploading maybe tomorrow, Dollar Tree haul or some kind of a haul. So you guys stay tuned. Thank you so much for coming, my Justies. Love you. Bye. See y'all later. See ya, Akil. Thank you. Thank you, ZR. See you next week. I'm going to make the thumbnail now so you can put it in your save for later. Thank y'all. It's going to say part 3. Same thumbnail, but part 3. Okay? And we'll do fantasy chapter 2. Fantasy. Woo! I don't know what that's going to be about. I'm still here watching with my mouth open. Yes, Shalise is crazy. Thank you for coming. I will see y'all next week, next Thursday for part 3. Thank you so much. Bye.